Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is right here, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Speaking of not being in a cult anymore, let's talk about James Packer briefly. James Packer, one of the wealthiest people in the world, one of the wealthiest people in Australia, and was one of Tom Cruise's #1 recruits to Scientology back in the early 2000s. And in fact, even when Tom and Katie got married and they went on their honeymoon, which Tom Cruise brought all of his guy friends along for his honeymoon for some reason, they were actually went out to the Maldives on James Packer's yacht with James Packer and Tommy Davis and other Sea Org members. Kind of weird to turn your honeymoon into a sausage fest, but who am I to judge? I don't know, guys. No, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so, James Packer might be one of the richest people in the world, but if you're not down with Scientology, Tom Cruise is not down with you, particularly if you were in Scientology and then you leave. It's become very apparent to me from what I've read that Tom Cruise was trying to save James Packer from the psychiatrists. He was trying to keep James out of the clutches of the evil alien psychiatrists that are imprisoning all of us here on this prison planet on the outskirts of the Galactic Confederacy. James probably didn't know that that's what Tom was doing, but let me show you what's been reported on this recently, because James never officially admitted to having been in Scientology previously, but he has now officially admitted to no longer being in Scientology. And he talks about his struggles with mental health, and he talks about the years that he met Tom Cruise and what was going on in his life. And it's just super, super obvious that Tom thought he could save this guy from being on psychiatric medication, which, by the way, many people don't know. If you are on psychiatric medication prescribed by a psychiatrist, there's a little bit of a loophole if it's prescribed by a non-psychiatrist MD. But if it's prescribed by a psychiatrist and you're on that medication for a few months or so, you are actually ineligible to ever receive Scientology auditing in this lifetime, according to Scientologists. But don't worry, there's always next lifetime. And that's what matters, is whether you can get Scientology. And if you can't get Scientology in this lifetime, maybe just drop the body and pick up another body so that you can be eligible to receive Scientology. That's what some Scientologists would tell you to do. Okay, let's take a look at this. Billionaire James Packer tells all how ex-fiancée Mariah Carey threatened to expose his darkest secrets, and Tom Cruise walked away from their friendship because of Scientology. Now, before I show you the very small portion of this article that has to do with Tom Cruise and Scientology, I want to show you an article from 11 years ago where James talks in more detail about having met Tom Cruise. So let's see the headline here. Aussie billionaire James Packer recalls surreal Tom Cruise meeting. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit more if I can. Okay, James Packer recalled his meeting with Tom Cruise at the lowest moment of his life in 2002 and the resulting friendship he had with the actor in an emotional, rare TV interview on the 7 Network in Australia. This is interesting to me. 2002 is before Tom Cruise assumed his final and ultimate form as Tom Cruise, the super Scientologist. Tom Cruise didn't become KSW Tom Cruise until about 2004, 2005, when he received his IAS Freedom Medal of Valor from his little best buddy, Captain David Miscavige of Scientology's fake space navy. So this was even before that. And I have to wonder whether his efforts or successful efforts to bring James Packer into Scientology had anything to do, a little bit to do maybe with Tom Cruise getting that medal, but a lot of things had to do with Tom Cruise getting that medal. Okay. James Packer fell short of directly acknowledging an involvement in Scientology. He reportedly joined the organization soon after meeting Tom Cruise, but supposedly left Scientology in 2005 after the death of his father. That's a long time ago. Okay. The billionaire son of media mogul Kerry Packer said that he had become a recluse in Sydney a year after he lost $365 million of the family's money in a business deal. That was when Tom Cruise, who James Packer had previously only met once or twice, reached out and their friendship was formed. I think I became depressed when I was emotionally exhausted and my marriage had broken up. I felt isolated. I felt like a failure. It was not a great time in my life. Sounds like he was primed for recruitment. Tom Cruise reached out to me and it was a surreal thing. I'd met him only once or twice. He was in Australia and we got together. I think that he could tell I was in pain and he invited me to his house to go skiing with him. Thereafter, James Packer visited Tom Cruise regularly at his home in Telluride and elsewhere. Tom Cruise and his then wife, Katie Holmes, were guests at James Packer's second wedding to Erica Baxter in 2007. I'll tell you, if James Packer had left Scientology in 2005, Tom Cruise and Katie would not have been going to his wedding in 2007. I can tell you that for a fact. So that was incorrect. Okay. Meaning it was incorrect that he had left Scientology in 2005. Okay. James says, Tom never asked me for anything, never asked me for anything his entire life. And he believed in me when other people didn't. I'm very grateful. I just think Tom's a very special person, a tearful James Packer said. Super interesting. Okay, so then let's go back to what he's saying now. Okay, James Packer is giving insight into his broken relationships with former fiancée Mariah Carey and ex-friend Tom Cruise. Okay, we're going to skip the Mariah Carey stuff because I don't care. Okay. As for his once close bond with Tom Cruise, James Packer claims that Scientology broke their friendship up. I am no longer a member of the Church of Scientology, he made clear when asked about Tom Cruise. James said, I was good friends with Tom Cruise. It is Tom's choice, not mine, that we're not friends anymore. I'll never say a bad word about him. He was a wonderful friend to me. He is an amazing person. That's pretty remarkable. That's pretty remarkable that Tom Cruise decided he didn't want to continue to be friends with someone that he'd been close with, had gotten into Scientology, had been there for James. To me, it's obvious why this is. Because a Scientologist, an extremely dedicated Scientologist like Tom Cruise, would not continue an association with someone who was under the care of mental health professionals, psychiatrists, or psychologists. He would most certainly not maintain a connection with someone who was on medication. And James Packer has been open about being on medication. In fact, so that's one of the things he discusses in this article. So let's keep reading here. James Packer was candid about his struggle with mental health and his bipolar diagnosis, which has made him have a nurse with him at all times. He says, I couldn't tell you what I'm on because I'm on a bunch of things and someone does it for me. He revealed about the prescription drugs he has used to help him. That doesn't sound good. The worst drug I was on, I was put on lithium in 2022. And within 2 weeks, I was a zombie. I was a complete zombie. My experiences from having worked with psychiatrists in Israel and Argentina, in America, and all sorts of places is if you get put on the wrong drugs, it can be worse. It can be worse than the mental illness itself. Okay, let's see. I'm not sure if he says anything else about Tom Cruise. He's talking about his life, business problems, personal problems. Okay, that's pretty much it. The fact that Tom severed his connection, relationship, friendship with James Packer after he failed to help him with Scientology, after he failed to keep him out of the hands of actual mental health professionals, is what tends to indicate to me that that was the purpose for creating the friendship in the first place. And it does sort of bring up an interesting question of what does it mean to a Scientologist to be someone's friend? And why is it that they cannot be friends with someone whose life simply isn't compatible with what a Scientologist would think is okay and acceptable? It's a brief little glimpse into the elitism and judgmentalism, if that's even a word, that exists in Scientology. It's, I mean, guys, Scientologists have a word for non-Scientologists, and that word is WOG. Like, it is an extremely common word in Scientology. They'll say, "Oh, he's just a WOG," and it's not a racial epithet in Scientology. And I didn't even know until I left Scientology that in many areas of the world, the UK, Europe, Australia, WOG is a racial slur. And now L. Ron Hubbard was in the Navy. I've been told by Navy folks that WOG is also short for, if I get it right, polywog, which means a sailor that has not crossed the equator yet. But again, isn't polywog also kind of a racial word? Let me look it up right here. Polywog. What is the actual definition? that's not it. Oh, okay. Let's see. Multiple matches. Oh, that's not it. Sailor term. A polywog is a sailor who has not yet crossed the equator and is part of the line crossing ceremony initiation rite. Okay, but let me Google polywog racial term. Wog is a racial slur used to refer in British English to Black and South American people. In Australian English, it refers to people from the Mediterranean region. So this is interesting, right? Because, well, L. Ron Hubbard had traveled the world, so he would have known that this had a racial connotation, but he was also in the Navy, so he would have known it was a Navy thing. Isn't it weird that he adopted a word for non-Scientologists that he knew would be a racial slur in, like, half the world? Kind of interesting. But yeah, if you're not down with Scientology, Tom Cruise ain't down with you. I mean, what more evidence do we need of that than Katie Holmes and Surrey Cruise? I mean, Tom Cruise disconnected from his own daughter because Katie was out of Scientology, didn't want to have to do with Scientology, and Tom wasn't going to be able to keep his clutches on Surrey the way he did with Connor and Isabella. See, when Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman divorced, they had a shared custody arrangement, and whenever Tom had the visitation or his turn for the custody of Connor and Isabella, he would program them with the Scientology beliefs that their mother, Nicole, was a suppressive person. Even though I don't know that Nicole Kidman was ever officially declared a suppressive person by Scientology, she was. Her kids were indoctrinated to believe that she was a suppressive person because she had left Scientology. She didn't want to do the OT levels. She didn't want her kids involved in Scientology. But Tom was able to brainwash the kids against Nicole. And whereas the kids never disconnected from Nicole, to the best of my knowledge, this very much affected how they viewed her. They stopped calling her mom. They called her Nicole instead. And anyway, it does seem more recently that perhaps the kids' relationship is better with Nicole than it was when they were younger. But Connor and Isabella are still diehard Scientologists. And I can bet you Nicole sure wishes that weren't true. And Katie Holmes sure made sure that wasn't going to be true. So anyway, if you're not down with Scientology, Tom Cruise is not down with you. Doesn't matter how much money you have. Okay, let's see. We got some starred comments. Barb is helping me in the back office. Let's see what we got because I actually have to run. CC Shelby, I wonder if Tom Cruise was most interested in getting James Packer into Scientology because of money more than saving the planet. I mean, yeah, money would have been a huge factor. R. Palmer 339 honestly was going to join Scientology, then did some research. Thank God for the internet. Well, congratulations on not getting sucked into a cult. Every day is a great day. Dodge Landisman says, hey, Lydia, hope you're well. Why is that starred? Abigail says, clearly the only reason Packer isn't speaking bad about Tom Cruise is he doesn't want Scientology going after him. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, James is, the media has been pretty rough on James over the years, but I guess maybe that's only the tip of the iceberg. Maybe he doesn't need to give anyone a justification to be digging any deeper than anyone's already dug. Verity says, I'm sure if James Packer was having any psychiatry medication, Scientology would have made allowances to allow him to join Scientology ultimately because of money. I know it's very easy to feel like they would do that, but you would be shocked how closely Scientology sticks to its rules and enforces these things, particularly on the technical side. And I'm sure once he got with Mariah Carey, Scientology would have been like, oh, hell no. You'd think Scientology would want a celebrity like Mariah Carey, particularly, earlier edition Mariah Carey, but they just don't need those kind of headaches. Like, Scientology really, really looks down on people who manifest in various ways forms of mental illness. And even if they want that money, they don't want that trouble. So, yeah, I guess it depends. And of course, celebrities have exceptions made for them at certain times in certain ways in Scientology. But when it comes to the technical side of the delivery of auditing, it's generally all done the same. So that's my opinion on that, at least. Philosophy says WOG is a racist slur in Australia. For many decades, they had a white-only immigration policy. So lots of Mediterranean immigrants there because they are technically Europeans. There you go. And I know disconnection. Exactly. All right, guys. Just want to do a brief little piece on this because I'm running all over the place today. I am going to do more this evening, so stay tuned. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe.